Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Personal attacks. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, and we're talking personal attacks. College football is back. Plenty of conversations to be had on other shows about who's going to beat who's ranked where. We'll talk a bit of college football. Maybe, of course, go Badgers. They're going to win it all. But wow, there's some stories surrounding college football today that caught my fancy. And we're starting with Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders up there in Colorado, savior of the program, king of the NIL, father of the Heisman candidate, the man who's attracting more attention than God or any of the 14ers out there in Denver, bringing his program back from the dead to new heights. Well, until they play games. And then all of a sudden they're mediocre with occasional doses of crappiness. But yesterday was different to me. Very different. I realized and read that over the weekend, news came out that Deion Sanders has banned a columnist. His name is Sean Keeler of the Denver Post. But that Deion Sanders has banned Keeler from asking Sanders questions. Keeler covers the Colorado Buffaloes as a member of the Denver Post. Now, don't worry. He can keep his credentials. And don't worry, he's allowed to go to games, thank God. He's allowed to go to practices, few. He's allowed to be in scrums. However, you may not ask any questions. How did this happen? Well, it turns out that Sean Keeler apparently made some personal attacks on Deion, name calling, referring to him in previous articles as false prophet or deposition Deion, Planet Prime, the Bruce Lee of BS. And apparently Deion had his feelings hurt. There's a man who was a reporter for the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel, I believe. His name was Mike Berardino. You may not know that name, and I don't know if he's still working. He had switched up into Minnesota, Coca. He left the Florida beat and moved to Minnesota, I think, to work for the Tribune. Mike Berardino wrote a scathing article about our organization when we switched from the Expos to the Marlins. It was the cover of Baseball America. I believe the cover had a hanging Youppi and some sort of Billy the Marlin cartoon. Of course, I don't blame him for the cover, but we certainly blamed him for the contents of the article where he gave voice to the aggrieved employees as part of that historic swap transaction in 2002 that found John Henry selling the Marlins and buying the Red Sox, and Jeffrey Loria selling the Expos and buying the Marlins, and Major League Baseball buying the Expos. There was an article that basically took a day. That's an exaggeration. It took maybe 3 hours of my life when it came out to deal with the ramifications of it. Found out immediately who the sources were and knew who the people quoted were, and it all made sense to me how Berardino got his facts wrong. He refused to apologize. For the rest of my career, we put a ban on Mike Berardino. But we didn't tell anyone that. We just didn't talk to him. We let our scouts talk to him when he was doing prospect articles. We let people in development talk to him when talking about minor leaguers. But our GM, Larry Beinfest at the time, then Mike Hill, myself, we always were very clear. If you want to ask us a question, go ahead and ask it. We're just not going to answer it. And we're going to answer it in whichever way we want if we do answer it, and it won't be the question you ask. There are ways to deal with a media member you don't want to deal with, but going public or having it be known that there is a member of the media that you will not allow to ask you a question, I don't like the fact that Deion went public with it. But then what happened is we found out another piece of information, and this one will blow your mind as it did mine. His contract, according to the Denver Post, Deion Sanders, when he came to Colorado, his contract states that he will only be required to speak to members of the media that are mutually agreed upon by Deion and Colorado. Mutually agreed upon media, which means if Deion doesn't want to talk to someone, he does not have to. That sort of contractual provision should never have been allowed by the Board of Regents or by the president of Colorado, no matter how desperate you are to have a coach. That is a provision I would never, ever allow into a contract that I was a part of as president of a team, nor would I make a demand of such contract if I were a coach, GM, or president of a team. One thing that we try to do with members of the media is we don't try to empower them too much. The irony of where I sit now is not lost upon me. We don't try to empower them. This action, this clause, this provision is an empowering provision. Is Deion so spineless, scared, and insecure that he needs to agree which members of the media he's going to speak to? He doesn't know anything about any of these members of the media, so he just gets to decide, if you write a bad thing, I'm going to cut you off. Is that doing justice to what the media is there to do, which is to report and to opine? The good news is the Keeler will be credentialed. Thank God. The bad news is that there's been a precedent set that somehow college coaches, first of all, side note, Coca, in the big leagues, managers don't get that right. Forget as a contractual right. They, after a bad game where they've been walked off because their closer stinks, they must meet the media. It is the rule. There is no exception. You can delay it. Normally, it's 10 minutes after the game ends. You want to make it 20 because you're getting rid of players or getting yelled at by your president or owner or GM. Fine. But the clubhouse can't stay closed forever. You meet the media before games and after games. Hard stop. The possibility of deciding who can be there and who can't. Now, we could decide on who to credential in terms of bloggers when that was starting, in terms of people who are not BBWAA. Were there times when we would not want to give a credential to someone? Yeah. Were there times when it happened? Very, very rarely. But these college coaches are making these choices, and then it becomes public, and oh, forget it, Coca. Let's move on. Do you know why? Because people in college aren't students, they're employees. And they're not young athletes, they're professionally paid athletes. So I guess it doesn't much matter setting an example or being a fatherly figure or taking care of the kids. I forgot. None of that matters. All right, we don't have to deal with that. I mean, we were going to talk about Dabo Swinney, but why bother? Why bother? Except I want to. So I'm going to. But I'm so distraught. The more I think about it, it puts me in a bad mood this morning. I'm not in a bad mood. I'm actually great night. I watched Griffin Conine get his major league debut in the 9th inning, pinch hit, struck out, but he pinch hit. Griffin Conine is a big leaguer. That was exciting. It actually was exciting the Marlins lost. I'm not excited they lost. It was exciting that he got to play. I hope he gets a start in Colorado while Niner is there, his father. Watch him, not have to wait to the ninth inning. But I was going over the show as the clock struck midnight and then into the earliest hours of the morning. And I was thinking about the Clemson coach, Swinney. And I was thinking about what happened with him. And it has to do with this Deion Sanders situation. He has a show like many coaches do, and they get paid. So on top of their salary and whatever deals they have with NIL or boosters or whatever the case may be, when you hire a big league manager, part of the contract that the manager gets is also that they make appearances on certain media outlets. They get paid for those. That's not out of the goodness of their heart. So Swinney gets paid. He does these shows. And he's decided that he's no longer going to take live phone calls, that he is going to figure out which questions he wants to answer on his show. And he will get emails and tapes of questions and then decide which ones he wants to answer. And the reason is that a few months ago, Swinney was taking a call and some guy called and the guy was pretty aggressive. Now, when you're dealing with live callers in the world of radio or TV, there are shows that vet the callers. Hey, what do you want to talk about? And it's up to the producer to figure out who to send through to the talent. Sometimes you get a call that is off the rails, and you have to learn as the producer or the talent how to end that call, cut that caller off, whatever the case may be. But there is a rule of broadcasting, and the rule is you don't go after your callers. Now, we're not talking about shock jocks or other people who make a living by demeaning callers, many of which are set up, but many of which are pre-planned and fixed because they think that's what the audience wants. And according to the sell-through rate and what they're paid, I guess it is what the audience wants. It's sort of like this presidential election. No one can complain about it because we will get what we want one way or the other. The country will be what the country will be. That's the same with call-ins, I guess, if you are that sort of person. I didn't think that the college program or what we do with managers, it's not that type of show. But a caller got in and started impugning Swinney and his salary of like $11 million, saying, you're not worth it, we stink, etc. I think Clemson was like 4-4 at the time of this call. And Swinney went bananas. I mean, he went after him. And he took his name and said, I've listened to enough of you. I don't know how old you are. I don't really care, but let me tell you something. We won 11 games last year, and you're part of the problem. It's always good to tell your customers that they're the problem. It's like saying, hey, we have bad attendance because you don't come. I may have thought that every day, but I would say, hey, we have bad attendance because we're not giving you enough reason to come. I guess I would argue that's a small nuance, but an important one. Sweetie said, to answer your question, I started as the lowest paid coach in this freaking business. All right? And I'm where I am because I worked my ass off every single day. And I'm not going to let some smart-ass kid get on this phone and create this stuff. Click. And so their solution was, forget it. No more live calls. I got a better solution. How about workshopping how to deal with that other than going on a rant that makes you look like a lunatic that causes the entire format of the show to change, which actually just shows again that you're in Deion's camp, totally insecure, totally unable to stand on your own 2 feet, totally unable to bridge questions that you don't want to answer into answers that you do. I just think it's a bad look, don't you? I think maybe some media training may be in order. Speaking of media training, do you think Jerry Jones, the GM, does media training? We make our GMs. We always made our GMs do media training because they're in front of the media plenty. I did media training when I got into baseball because I was going to be in front of the media plenty. Media training is done by people who know what they're doing in several languages. You learn how to react, how to deal with something as simple as an IFB of a voice in your ear. For those of you not watching on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel or on the DraftKings Network, I have an IFB in my ear where Coca talks into while we are talking on the show. You can go watch broadcast news or any morning show or anything that involves people with IFBs, and you know that I can't say it's as cool as juggling or sword swallowing, but being able to talk and listen at the same time, something I could have used in many of my relationships, I would say. So media training is important. I don't think Jerry Jones does it. I really don't. He gave a rant to alldallas.com, ALLDLLS.com. A guy named Clarence Hill was doing a interview. Why Jerry Jones is being interviewed? Because we're about to start football season. We're a little over a week away. I think a week from Thursday. So we're 9 days away from opening day. NFL kickoff. I think the Chiefs play the first game on September 5th, Coca. The Cowboys love this time of year. Speaking from experience, and it's absolute poppycock, but the owners all pay attention to when Forbes releases the valuations of all the teams in a league, and they do it prior to the start of a season. Of course, that is the silliest time to do it, but let's not quibble about that. Dallas Cowboys worth $10.9 billion. The most valuable $10.9 billion. The most valuable franchise in the world is what supposedly the Dallas Cowboys are, which makes Jerry Jones the most powerful owner in the world, which means that if you are his GM, you serve at the whim of this powerful owner. The GM of the Cowboys is this guy they hired back, I don't know, more than 30 years ago. His name is Jerry Jones. He's a guy who didn't have much of a football resume when he started, but he's really grown into the job as GM and really has become the longest tenured GM in all of football. Working with an owner like Jerry Jones must be very difficult for Jerry, but the good news is that there's been great results. As a matter of fact, you may not know this, but the Cowboys won the Super Bowl in 1996, the year after the 95 season, 2 weeks later, whatever the case is. So people consider it the 1995 Super Bowl. Do you know that's 29 years ago? Which is right on par. There's 32 teams in the NFL. You're supposed to win once every 32 years, supposedly. And he's done more than his share of winning. For some reason, Cowboy fans are distraught at GM Jerry Jones, but the owner continues to give him great votes of confidence. The GM signed CeeDee Lamb yesterday after protracted, long negotiations. Scary to think that the season could start with CeeDee Lamb still holding out. CeeDee Lamb accruing $3 million of fines. Don't worry, CD. Those can all be rescinded now that you've signed. You were on a rookie deal. That's the rule. I'm sure that you didn't realize that. So I'm sure that when you were holding out, you were pinching your pennies. 4,869. I'm sure, CD, during your holdout, you were pinching your pennies because of the great fines that you were had levied upon you. 4 years, $136 million with a $38 million signing bonus. Let me quickly do the math. Texas, no state tax. Let's say an effective tax rate of 40%, 38 million. That's 14, 12, $15.2 million. That's 23 net, roughly. If you got to pay the fines, you've got 20 million up front. Not too shabby. You all happy in Dallas that CeeDee Lamb, his holdout's over? That Coach McCarthy's going to work him in slowly, going to start him in practice, hopefully have him ready for the first game? Yes. 4 years, 136 with guarantees of 100. Guarantees of 100. The second largest contract for a non-quarterback in NFL history. Give Jerry Jones, the owner, credit for overruling the GM and saying, sign this guy. Tuck him in over Jefferson and guarantee and under Jefferson and full notional value. If you can do that, GM Jerry, then we got ourselves a deal. I'm in like Errol. What do you think? Good signing? Everyone excited? Let's see what the GM had to say. Nothing. Let's see what the owner had to say. Ooh, I've done it all, the owner said. So I have an inordinate amount of confidence that if anybody can figure out how to get this S done, I can figure out how to get it done. I've been there every which way from Sunday. I've busted my arse a bunch. There's nobody living that's out cutting and shooting that can't give you a bunch of times. They busted their buttocks. So hell no, there's no one that could effing come in here and do all the contracts and be a GM any better than he can. Who you talking about? Me. Who's on first? What's on second? Was that the owner giving the quote or the GM? Was that the GM talking about himself or the owner talking about himself, what he thinks about himself as GM? Or maybe it was the owner just talking about his own GM, thinking it's a totally different person. Like when he goes home at night as the owner, he says, God dang it, that GM stinks. The GM goes home at night. Maybe it's a different place. There have been rumors, who knows? But all those cases get dropped. Maybe the GM goes home to a different place and says, God, working for that owner is a big pain in my ass. But thank God I have a job because, gosh dang, we can't win ever. It's been 30 years. I still have a job. Sweetheart, aren't we the luckiest? Of course, that's why I keep paying you money every month. I cannot believe that I still pay that GM. I can't believe it. What does he have, pictures of me? We had to wait to see that CeeDee Lamb would sign a guarantee higher than Justin Jefferson. On July 24th of 2024, we gave you that wait to see, which is when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, we'll revisit it. If it doesn't, we'll revisit it. We're going to revisit this one from July 24th when we said CeeDee Lamb will sign a guarantee higher than JJ. I believe that he's guaranteed more at signing than JJ. I'm taking a yes, Coca. You all can correct me out there. All Nothing Personal fans, if you're in the chat room, wherever you are, correct me. Tell me I got it wrong. Let me give you the wait to see for today. Guess who's next to sign a contract with the Cowboys? Wait to see. Dak Prescott will not sign an extension before game 1 of the season. I may have that as a wait to see, Coca, but now we've got it twice because it felt so nice. Dak Prescott will not, though now he's the focus. I wonder whether he's the focus of the owner or the GM. Okay. Let's take a break now. I'm going to take a sip of water. Quick break. We're going to review a movie that I mentioned yesterday, but we're going to talk more about today. The U.S. Open started yesterday. I want to get to that as well. And then, do you have an extra $24.12 million? And if so, what kind of shirt would you buy that is worth $24 million? We'll talk about it after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Sitting here on a Tuesday, getting ready to record an episode of the Sporting Class at some point today. Look for that on Thursday as part of Pablo Torre Finds Out, his show feed. Appreciate all of the people who support Nothing Personal and always will. We'll keep going. Hell yes, we will. I watched this movie. I told you I watched it. What was it, 2 days ago now, called Incoming. I had no idea that it was written and directed by Dave and John Chernin, who are the son of Peter Chernin, a very well-known executive who I've met many, many times. I didn't realize that his sons wrote It's Always Sunny. I didn't realize that they had wrote and directed this film called Incoming. Incoming is a John Hughes 80s movie wannabe in 2024. Some of you may accuse me of, oh, you don't get the movie. I think I do. Anytime you can do a movie about teen angst, you better hold yourself up to the John Hughes standard. The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller. You know what I'm talking about. I hope you do, at least. That's a filmmaker whose movies you'll be watching with your kids and grandkids from an era that you may not have even been alive during, yet it is still these coming-of-age movies that have aged perfectly for the most part and are required viewing. Incoming, I would like to be the first to tell you, will not be added to that list. I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch it. I'm just saying that if you only have an hour and a half, go back and watch one of the John Hughes movies. It will be a much smarter, better written movie. I love the US Open. Does that make me what I am? I loved it when I was a kid. Does that make me what I was? That's funny to think about. The US Open has become a behemoth business, and people are talking a lot about it, except the US Open has always been that. It's always been this sort of she exclusive tennis tournament in New York at Forest Hills when John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, Andre Agassi, Yvonne Lendl, Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, Martina, Chris, Evert, Lloyd, and then Evert, and then Lloyd. You always would watch late into the night. Go Google Jimmy Connors against Aaron Krickstein in the US Open. The match is one of the most memorable matches I've ever seen. I bet you haven't thought of Aaron Krickstein in just a hot minute, if you've even heard of him at all. As a matter of fact, I will bet $1, Mortimer Coca, that you've never heard of Aaron Krickstein. What do you think? Do I win? The US Open has become, and that is the narrative around it. And I don't quite understand the narrative. The numbers are bigger now. The US Open's purse this year, they will be giving him prize money $75 million, and they're making a huge deal of it because the men and the women both get $3.6 million for winning. It's a record. What interests me is that just getting into the tournament, you lose in the first round, you can get $100,000. They talk about the revenue from certain drinks. Go ahead and Google it, or just know that their drinks, it's sort of like the mint julep in Louisville, but there's a drink at the US Open. It's $23. It generates millions of dollars of revenue during the course of the US Open because people come there and they want to drink the drink. Catering there. They will talk to you about the attendance at the US Open. There will be releases that more people are on the grounds today than any other day. More people are watching across all networks and platforms than any other year. It will be record-setting because before the tournament even started, they wrote down what message points they wanted to be out in public, and they made those message points happen. Now, we don't know exactly how many drinks will sell. We can't tell you how many people went through the turnstile. We just know that there are people in charge of such things who once in a while give you information that's not true in order to make something real, to make it look as real as possible when it's not. There is huge incentive for the US Open to be the biggest tournament in not just the country, but bigger than Wimbledon, bigger than the French Open, and of course, bigger than the Australian Open. Those are the four majors in tennis. Part of making this come to be are the different announcements that you will see during the course of the US Open. If you pay attention, we'll try to get some of them and make you laugh as they happen. But the announcements of, hey, this is the greatest. Djokovic is going for his 25th Grand Slam, and people are head over heels. Oh, that's right. You weren't allowed to play a few years ago, but now you're back. We're all good. No one's got COVID anymore. It's a brand new world. Do you know that, the U.S. Open lauds its total purse, which is nice. I'm glad they do it. Do you know that in golf, with all that's going on with LIV, did we even talk about the fact that LIV and PGA now have the same representative at CAA, and that they're negotiating against each other to try to form and merge their tours, which they're now coming on a year late or 2 years late? One of the two. That ill-fated, ridiculous announcement by Jay Monahan about the merger, well, it's still being talked about, still being discussed. It's taken longer than the Paramount Skydance merger, which, as you know, Edgar Bronfman Jr. is no longer interested in, so it's back to Skydance. Yeah. So in golf, this week's Tour Championship, which is being played, do you know that there's a bonus pool as part of the money within golf? If you win, whoever wins the Tour Championship, they're going to get $25 million extra. Just think about that for one quick sec. You talk about pressure to win a tournament. Now, come in third, you only get $7.5 million bonus. Not too shabby. What they're doing is that everyone in the top 12 will make at least $1 million. And the reason they're doing that in the Tour Championship, what would you think the reason is? Show of hands why they have all this money going toward the PGA Tour Championship. All right, fine. I'll raise my hand. So no one else goes to LIV. That's what we're going to do. We're going to let Tiger Woods be on the board and help shepherd the PGA going forward. And the way to do it is to give bonuses. Appearance fees is basically what they are, but except you get results. Appearance fees with the result bonus. Do you know what's always good for the consumer is when two companies are merging, and instead of figuring out economies of scale, instead of figuring out how actually to fit together, what they do is they just keep competing against each other to make it even harder to merge. That makes so much sense what these businesses do. It's so ridiculous. Hey, screw you, LIV. We're going to start giving $25 million bonuses. That's why no one's going to ever continue to go to the dark side. And LIV is saying, yeah, we'll show you. We're going to hire a different agent, and we're going to get off the CW, and we're going to try to get on TNT, get even more money coming our way. Well, wait a minute. That's true. Let's not step over billions of dollars to pick up pennies. So true, we're still going to be funded by a sovereign foreign investment fund. But let me tell you something. We're going to use it to get the best players and then pay the biggest money to players who stink. Beat that. It's pretty funny, actually. Do you ever think about how all of this money happens? Well, as you know, we talk about foreign investment. We talk about the NFL is going to vote today in their owners' meetings. We talked about that, allowing private equity in. We know that there's been a huge pot of money put into PGA. Fenway Sports Group led that. Remember John Henry, Steve Cohen, for those of you Mets fans, wondering why the Mets stink and why the Red Sox stink. They don't really stink. Neither of them stink. They're both unlikely to make the playoffs. But a ton of money was put into the PGA for purposes of getting more money to the players. Ton of foreign money comes in, which is money that comes from various things. But let's just say your dipstick knows. That may be an old reference. Do you know what your dipstick is? Does anyone check their dipstick anymore? Coca, do you know what a dipstick is? You should. You know, it's the thing in your car engine that you pull out to see whether you need oil, and you wipe it, and then you dip it, and then you pull it, and then you see the level of your oil. So the reference, way funnier if someone got it. The reference oil money, Middle East, anybody? Okay. Thank you all very much. We'll have again a show tomorrow for you. I think we're going to end the show because no one is even responding to me. Are you there? I feel like Springsteen. Is anyone alive out there? I'll tell you who's alive. I'm alive. Nothing personal pick of the day. We are hot. Feeling hot, hot, hot. We had Wheeler and the Phillies over the Astros. The Phillies walked off the Astros, having nothing to do with Wheeler over Blanco. But a win's a win, and we are 111 and 114. All right. Do any of my buttons play music? Do you have like a celebration music you can play, Coca, of any kind? In this highly produced, highly supported show of ours? Highly edited, very, very expensive to produce with all of our scores of staff members. Do we have a button we can press, for crying out loud, that gives us anything of joy? God, I love this show. Hi, my name's David Samson. I'm the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. And this is the time of the show where I'd normally be doing a read, where there'd be an advertiser saying, oh, buy my product, use this code. And then we will be able to give Samson and Coca a button to press that has joyous frickin' music. And the crowd goes crazy because it's Corbin Day. Patrick Corbin, I didn't lose the weight to see yet, Coca. I said Patrick Corbin will not get a start in the month of September. I'm slightly concerned about that because he is getting a start tonight against the Yankees. Garrett Cole is minus 225 over Corbin. I'm sorry, but we got to take the Yankees. There is no way the Yankees will not crush Patrick Corbin. Is there a line that we can give for the over-under on runs scored? What's the run total in the first 5 innings of the Nats-Yankees game? Does DraftKings do a 5-inning run total, or is it only a 9-inning run total? Garrett Cole's been pitching well. Obviously, can't wait to see what Judge does today because every day it's something spectacular. Stanton turns out to be the keystone of the Yankees lineup. When he's in it, they win. When he's not in it, they lose. I don't think Patrick Corbin should get any September starts. The Nats are out of it. Why are they wasting? Why are they wasting valuable opportunities for young pitchers to try to figure out things at the big league level and giving Corbin the ball? Why? But it's Corbin Day. I got a second pick because, again, I'm feeling a little happy. The total, wait a minute. We have breaking news, and we have an additional pick of the day, Coca. The first 5 innings, the over-under is 4.5 runs, but you have to lay 135. We are going OVER, 4.5 runs in the first 5 innings. Coca, please mark that down as a pick of the day, along with the Yankees over the Nationals and a third pick to get us to 500. We're 3 games under. Did you see what the Royals did to the Guardians yesterday? The Royals played a doubleheader against the Guardians. The Royals swept the doubleheader. The Royals are now 1 game out of the Central in the American League. You've got a 3-team race. I'd say it's exciting 3-team races. Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres, Twins, Royals, Guardians. 2 of the 6 divisions have 3-team races. In any other year, you'd say, we've got ourselves a September to behold. This is MAJOR. The Yankees, Orioles, they are in a tight race too. Here's the small, teeny-weeny, eensy-beensy problem. Not one team I just mentioned is in danger of not making the playoffs. Would you like to avoid the 2 out of 3 wildcard round? Sure. In order to do that, you got to have the top 2 record in your league if you don't want to play in the wild card round. So the thing is, we've got this exciting moment where the Royals could catch the Guardians, except the Royals and the Guardians are both fine. And so are the Twins, for that matter. 3 playoff teams from your AL Central. Yippee-ki-yay, baseball. Don't worry. You've got Ohtani and Judge. Whew. I think the Royals are going to continue this little run to the top of the Central. If you're not watching Bobby Witt Jr. because you're so focused on Judge, then you're missing someone who is the surefire MVP of this league if Aaron Judge didn't exist. I am the best show on Meadowlark if Dan Le Batard and Pablo Torre didn't exist. I think I'm even with them. That's a funny thing to say that. I'd be able to dunk if I were 6'7". It's preposterous. Bobby Witt is not going to win MVP. He is second in the odds at plus 1,100 because Aaron Judge is minus 3,000 to win the MVP. But there could be value down the line. Remember those suckers out there who took Paul Skeens as Rookie of the Year, minus 3,300. Where are you now? Panicked because Jackson Merrill of the Padres is going to do it. Totally panicked. I don't think you need to panic with Aaron Judge, but hey, there's a month left of the season. You never know. Although Aaron Judge could get hurt, not play another game, and Bobby Witt could hit 14 home runs this month, and the Royals could win the division. And let me think, wait for it, Aaron Judge would still be the MVP. East Coast bias. Nah, doesn't exist. We're going to take Michael Lorenzen and the Royals plus 124 as they go for the tie in the division and their 3rd straight win over the Guardians. We're taking Cole minus 225 over Corbin and the Nats, and we're taking over 4.5 runs in the first 5 innings. And we're going to take all of the money that we win tonight and all the money that you win tonight. We're going to go on an auction site and we're going to buy us some memorabilia. Who's got it? Put all your money in the middle. What do you want to buy? You want to buy a Spoonie Barger jersey? No? All right, let me think. What else? How about a Mike Dunn jersey? Great player, made a ton of appearances for the Marlins. One of the great guys in baseball. I think he's with his family in Vegas now. Want to buy that? Or do you really want to go nutty? Put all your money together, find $24.121 million, and try to buy Babe Ruth's famous jersey from the 1932 World Series where he called a shot. Remember that picture, Babe Ruth? Everyone does it. Everyone gets at the plate now and they pointing to the stars or the moon or the outfielder or to a girl in the stands, whatever they're pointing to. Babe Ruth was obviously pointing that he was going to hit a home run, and where he was pointing to, wait a minute, no proof of that. The jersey that sold for $24 million the other day, that's the same jersey that sold for, up to $1 million when it was just a Babe Ruth jersey. Then people did this photo matching thing, which is when you look really hard at pictures from a moment, and then you look really hard at the garment in front of you, and you say, look at this game-worn handkerchief that Samson has. If you're only listening to this, then you don't know that I'm holding one of my blow, not show handkerchiefs. I keep one on set all times in case I need to do a little sweat pat, which I don't because I control the air. And believe me, if there were a huge studio audience in here, A, you'd have nowhere to sit, but B, you'd be freezing your kishkas off. But I still keep it here, JIC, along with some tissues and some chapstick and some water. That's really everything. Oh, and a keyboard cleaner right here. Not a sponsor, so I'm not going to show you the name, but I can clean my keyboard with that. And glasses. So what do you think? What would you pay for a game-worn hanky? Well, you got to go on to the camera, and you have to match it. Well, this looks like the exact one that Samson had on August 27th. We've done a lot of studying, and now we're looking at the hanky. Now, don't get me started that I got this in a 3-pack. Let's not even discuss that fact. Let's just say that we photo matched this hanky, which means this is the hanky, and we're going to spend a lot of cash on it. That's what they did for the Babe Ruth jersey. It's not authenticated. Baseball, you have a jersey, it's now authenticated. It is in the cloud. You can look up if you have an authentication sticker. MLB authenticates its memorabilia. Memorabilia is a huge business to the point where there are people buying cards hoping to get one card that's of value. Everybody's looking for something. It's like lotteries. That's sort of what's crazy to me, is that memorabilia collecting, buying playing cards as a way to generate revenue for the owner of the playing card company, like Topps. And you know who owns Topps. If you don't, check it. Check it, Mikey. Because the Angels want to wear my white shoes. Anywho, what do you think of photo matching Babe Ruth's jersey to the called shot, assuming that he was calling for the home run, the most iconic jersey of all time, then going to auction and saying, hey, this looks good. We're doing it. 24 mil. I mean, that includes a buyer's premium. When you buy something at auction, don't ever forget about the premium that you have to pay to the auction house. That's called the VIG. It's like the VIG in the house or in Baccarat or anywhere. So the owner of that jersey does not get $24.1 million because that includes that buyer's premium. Do you know how much the piece of memorabilia was that was the most expensive prior to this Babe Ruth special photo match jersey? Half. A Mickey Mantle card sold for $12.6 million. Do you remember the NFT craze when people were buying NFTs left, right, and center, and they were trading them and making money? They're going to be a millionaire. And then all of a sudden, the game stopped. The key to memorabilia is you want to be early, not late. The key to memorabilia is you want something that doesn't exist anywhere else. You want to make sure it's that. And then the key is to decide from an investment standpoint why you're buying it. What's it for? Are you donating it? Are you looking for an ROI? People who bought Michael Jordan's Bulls jersey from game 1 of the 1998 NBA Finals paid $10.1 million for that. Do you do it for fun? Buying art? People buy art all the time. What's the value of a de Kooning, a Picasso, a Leger, a Steinberg, a Miro? Pick your artist. There's a market. Markets are based on my favorite economic concept. Who's got the supply and where's the demand? It's like buying a sports team. So do you know what they're doing now? They're just starting new sports leagues so more people can have access to owning sports teams. Hey, I own a professional sports team. Oh, it's pickleball. Yep. Oh, it's some sort of indoor fencing. Yep. But I own a team. Indoor, outdoor, combo cricket. Yep. I'm going to be the commissioner of that. NWSL. Hi, my name's Bob Iger. I'm going to find a replacement for me to run Disney because I am spending my time with the NWSL and their new CBA because I put a ton of money at a valuation that would blow your socks off. There's another league. We'll just keep coming up with leagues. Memorabilia. Is there a limit to memorabilia? No. You find more stuff, you make more stuff. The jersey for Griffin Conine's first professional at bat. If Griffin Conine becomes Babe Ruth, that becomes a very valuable piece of memorabilia. So you might as well take it and see what happens. But the value of something now may be different for someone who believes that something will end up being something, or someone will end up being something. Does this sound familiar? The way I'm talking, does it sound like when you buy a penny stock or when you day trade a stock? Does it sound as though that people are hunting for money, trying to win the memorabilia lottery? How much money do you spend of your salary buying lottery tickets or going to casinos or hunting for Victor Wembanyama rookie cards? What happens if he becomes better than LeBron? Then you did something well. What happens if he doesn't? Then you spend a lot of time hunting. Sounds like you ought to buy stuff you like looking at, you like living with. The majority of us aren't going to end up in this league where we're buying Babe Ruth jerseys for $24 million. There's like a quarter of a percent of people who would even be in the market for such art or such pieces of memorabilia. So I have an idea. Why don't you get something that is meaningful to you and not think that that's how college will get paid or that you can retire early, but that it's stuff that you love to look at, that you love to own, or you love to feel, be a part of, watch. And then it doesn't matter if you've screen matched it. It's just business after all. We'll be back tomorrow. I promise. This is nothing personal.